The Lion King. 2. Simba's pride is pitched as a straightforward succession story from the beginning. Simba is now king, and his daughter Kiara is the heiress. It all makes sense. But suppose you look more closely, especially at the chronology of events and visual inconsistencies. A disturbing question arises. Is Kiara really Simba's temporal anomaly? In the final scene of the first movie, Simba and Nala stand on the Rock of the Ancestors. A jubilant pride surrounds them, and a newborn lion cub appears. It seems like a happy ending, but what exactly do we see? We see a lion cub, no words, no hint of who he or she is. There is no certainty that this baby is exactly Ciara. In fact, the name is not mentioned at all in the finale. A few years pass, and The Lion King 2 Inches begins. Ciara is now quite grown up, not a baby or a cub. More like a teenager. Her manner of speech, coordination of movements, and thinking suggest an age of at least a few months, if not a year. But Simba looks precisely the same as he did at the end of the first part. His appearance hasn't changed one bit. No maturation, no fatigue, no signs of fatherhood. It is this visual match that is one of the first red flags. Suppose enough time had passed between the end of the first movie and the beginning of the second movie for Kiara to grow older. In that case, Simba should have looked older too. However, this is not the case. External differences. Comparing Ciara and Simba raises even more questions. The color of her fur is noticeably lighter, and her eyes are not golden like her father's but almost honey-colored. One could argue that this is stylistic. However, Disney animation usually adheres to precise, conscious decisions. Appearance in their films is a marker of belonging, character, and background. Besides, Kiara did not inherit Simba's habits or his rebellious nature. She is soft, hesitant, and sometimes naive, more like Nala in her youth. But there is almost nothing of Simba, young and impetuous in her. If Kiara is Simba's biological daughter, why does she have nearly none of his traits? Lack of a conception scene, a key point. In the original The Lion King, there is not a single scene, not even a hint, of Nala getting pregnant. Yes, there was a musical number called Can You Feel the Love Tonight, where Nala and Simba got close. But the movie cuts off shortly after the return to Pride. There are at most a couple of days between Simba's return and the finale. During this time, he overthrows Scar and rebuilds Pride. Could Nala have gotten pregnant during this time? Theoretically, yes. But the animation montage presents it as a compressed time arc where everything happens almost instantaneously. And in the finale, a cub appears, but it's logically impossible. If the infant appeared immediately after the return, it must have been conceived beforehand. And that's where the worrying part comes in. Was Kiara already there? What if Kiara is not the result of Simba and Nala's reunion, but a consequence of Nala's life in exile? If you accept this hypothesis, the chronology suddenly adds up perfectly. Kiara could have been born before Simba returned. This explains why Nala cries when she meets Simba in the jungle. These aren't just tears of joy. They're relief mixed with guilt. She's not alone anymore. She has a lion cub, and that lion cub is not his. Nala's emotions are subtle but precise. She's clearly hiding more than she's saying. Saying that pride is in trouble is true, but not all of it. Suppose Ciara was already born by the time of the first movie's finale. In that case, it turns out that conception occurred during the exile. Simba couldn't be the father. The scene with the baby on the Rock of the Ancestors is not a beginning, but a continuation. And Nala brought a child to Pride from someone no one was supposed. This flips Simba's story and the entire legacy structure in The Lion King 2. Who is Ciara's father then? And why couldn't this be spoken aloud? The answer is in what happened during the exile. When Nala left the Pride Lands, and perhaps met someone no one was supposed to know about. The moment Simba disappears, a prolonged period of dormancy begins in the Pride Lands. The Scar takes over, resources dwindle, and the pride fades. And somewhere in the background, Nala's trail is lost. Yes, the movie shows her going off to find help, but in reality she disappears indefinitely. And at what exact moment it returns, history is silent. This time lapse is where the most critical trace lies. A period when she might not have been alone. When she could, by logic, by instinct, by need, get close to someone who became part of her secret. Chronological gap. Let's try to build a timeline. Simba disappears as a child and is presumed dead. Scar becomes king. A few years go by. Pride is in decline. Nala leaves the territory. She suddenly finds Simba in the jungle. Simba returns. The problem is point 4. At what point exactly does Nala leave? It is already a period of decline. All the lions look emaciated, and the pride is exhausted, but Nala herself is strong, active, and determined. This state of mind doesn't form in a couple of days. It's the result of months, even years of forced leadership. In this interval, when Scar's power collapses the order, and Nala becomes the de facto leader of those left behind, She leaves to seek help, and maybe it's not just Simba he finds. A lion out of nowhere? It's as if the plot of The Lion King purposely avoids showing any other lions besides Scar and the females. But if you look at the canon more broadly, including the Lion Guard, the official books, and related materials, hints of other males who crossed paths with the Pridelands emerge. Specifically, some footage shows that there may have been other Pridelands near Pridelands. Male lions have been known to leave their home pride in search of their territory. Furthermore, the extended sources mention males who do not report directly to Scar, but live on the border of the wastelands. Nala would likely meet another lion if she left the Pridelands and crossed the outer boundaries. And here's the critical point. This is not a fictional character. We're not saying Nala fell in love with someone. We're saying that logically she could have encountered a male, and it's not against canon. Moreover, it fills a logical hole in the chronology. The psychology of the exile considers the situation from Nala's point of view. She's young, isolated, and responsible for the pride's survival. Scar is a threat and a dictator with whom no rapprochement is possible. All the males are gone. Nala doesn't just suffer. She carries the burden of an entire generation. And then one day, she leaves the Pride Parade. At this point, she probably doesn't just need an ally. She needs someone who can give her hope. Someone who isn't Scar, someone strong, someone who can be protective, even if only for a little while. Bonding with another male in this situation is not a vice. It's a survival instinct. It's a psychological release in a scorched earth situation. Emotions that can't be fooled. Let's return to the scene of meeting Simba in the jungle. When Nala sees him, she's stunned, shocked. But the key is not joy. There's something else in her gaze, a mixture of relief and guilt. It was as if she didn't expect Simba to be alive, and at the same time she was afraid that everything that had gone before would now have to be hidden. Not everything she did could be shown to him. She may have become a mother in the meantime, or was about to become one, and now everything's changed. How did she find Simba? Another mystery. How did Nala end up in that jungle in the first place? The world of the Lion King is vast. Simba didn't know where he was going. He just ran away. And now Nala finds him at a point where no one should have been. The chances of a chance encounter are minimal. Then how did she get there? There's a theory. She was led there, or someone she met knew about the place. Someone she already had a connection with. Someone not shown on screen but whose existence logically explains the coincidence. If Nala had spent time with another lion, the question would no longer be whether there was a connection. It's about who it was. And most importantly, did that connection only remain in the past? Or did it reverberate into the future? The answer may lie within Ciara herself, in her appearance, her features, in her reaction to Kovu. The next installment is about who Ciara's father could have been. It's time to start looking for the forbidden person in this story, someone whose name could not be spoken, but whose traits still show through in the offspring. When Simba's paternity is questioned, the next question inevitably arises. Who could have been Kiara's father? We can already see that Nala's timeline and behavior allow for another male in her life. But is there any image in the canon that could match this figure? Yes, and it is much closer than it appears. Ciara's traits. We should start with Ciara herself. Her appearance differs from Simba's. The coloring is lighter, closer to beige than golden. The eyes are not amber but almost honey brown. The muzzle features are more elongated and less rounded than Simba's. The comparison to Nala speaks in favor of the maternal line, but Ciara has different genetics. She doesn't just look like her mother, she's from a different pride. Particular attention should be paid to her behavior. Ciara instinctively seeks to go beyond the limits of what is allowed. In the first scene with her, she leaves the grounds, ignoring the guards. This is not the mannered character of the king's daughter. This is the impulse of someone who doesn't feel rooted in the current order. Psychologically, she is closer to the outcasts than the throne's heir. The mirror effect. Ciara and Kovu. At first glance, Ciara and Kovu seem to be opposites. She's the heiress of the Pride Parade and he's a raised exile. But their relationship is more than just plot chemistry. Their genetic similarities cannot be ignored. Identical body type and similar coloration, especially when young. Behaviors. Secretive, cautious, but determined. A sense of detachment from their official families. It's not just artistic symmetry. In the world of The Lion King, the character's appearance is a marker of kinship and belonging. Ciara and Kovu are too similar to be strangers. So there was already a connection between their lines before they met. And it may come from Ciara's common father, someone involved with Scar's pride. Political context. The next logical step is to consider who might have benefited from such a connection. As the leader of a pride parade under siege, Nala had to find a way to escape. She could go for it if she had a chance to team up with an alien male and preserve the species, especially if that male belonged to a hostile clan. For example, a line related to Scar. This explains many things. Why Simba repels Kovu from the beginning. He senses danger not only in the young man but perhaps also in his resemblance to someone from the past. Why is Zira initially hostile to Nala? Not as a queen, but as a traitor? Or the other way around, as a former ally? Why does Nala behave with restraint, almost emotionless, towards Zira? It's not fear. It's a contained conflict with too much undercurrent. Theory. Kiara is the result of a secret alliance. If we imagine that during her exile, Nala made a brief but strategically significant alliance with an exiled male, possibly of Scar's line, and born by him a new model of dynasty emerges. Kiara is the child of the union of two warring lines. Simba is not the biological father, but politically adopts Kiara Nala, the liaison who hides the truth for the sake of peace. This reshapes the entire basis of the second part. Kiara and Kovu's love story becomes an instinctive reunion of bloodlines rather than just a conflict of different worlds. And if Kovu was raised to be a vigilante but turned out differently, maybe it's because he feels something native in Kiara, something that words can't explain. Turn. Zira's line. Zira is the strangest figure in The Lion King 2. She is fanatically loyal to Scar but also has powers of her own. And most importantly, she has children. But by whom? Who's the father of Kawu, Nuki, and Vitani? No one names him. He kind of disappeared from history. What if the one who became Ciara's father was the same one who was involved with Zira? If he's dead, banished, or disappeared, it explains everything. Why Nala is silent, why Zira hates her but doesn't attack her, and why Kiara and Kovu look alike, but no one talks about it. Summarizing. The image of the Forbidden Father is not a phantom. It is hidden in the frames, in the logic of the world, and in the characters' similarities. Its absence is also a sign. He's not in history because he wasn't supposed to be, but there's still a trace of him in Ciara. The next part is about Nala, not as the hero's companion but as the architect of the dynasty. To the woman who created the future of Pride, not because of Simba, but despite. Nala's image in The Lion King is often reduced to the role of a faithful companion and caring mother. It's like she's in Simba's shadow, judicious, kind, supportive. But suppose we accept the previous assumptions about her personal history, possible forbidden connection, and Ciara's real origins. In that case, the whole figure of Nala is revealed differently. Not as a minor character, but as a key strategist in the history of Pride, the quiet architect of a new dynasty. Nala was the only one who remained strong as the Pride lands plunged into devastation. Scar had usurped power, the other females were depressed, and the future seemed a foregone conclusion. It is at this time that she makes the decision to leave Pride and seek help. It's a risky and politically dangerous move. To leave is to abandon your clan. But to stay is to accept ruin. That's a choice only a leader can make. Someone who can think strategically, even if it has severe personal consequences. If Nala did have an affair with another male during this period, it was not simply a consequence of loneliness. It could have been a deliberate move. The Pride needed an ally and a potential father for the next generation. With all males except Scar gone, the alternative could only appear outside familiar territory. And if Kiara was born from that union, Nala knew from the start that she would have to hide the truth. Simba's return changed the outcome, but it did not cancel reality. Ciara already existed, or at least had already been conceived. Simba unknowingly accepts her as his daughter. Not because he was deceived, but because he wants to believe. Nala doesn't mind. She allows the illusion to exist, for the future of the Pride, for peace. In Part 2, as Kiara grows up, Nala stabilizes the tension between Simba and his daughter. Simba shows control, aggression, fear, everything but trust. Nala acts differently, gentle but persistent. She doesn't intervene rigidly, she doesn't dictate, but her presence is felt. It's as if she knows that Kiara has her own way, and that interfering is destroying the balance. Of particular note is Nala's reaction to Kovu. When he first appears next to Kiara, Simba perceives this as a Nala is not. There's no hostility in her demeanor, no categorization. She's observing. Restrained, but not cold. As if trying to see if she sees something familiar in Kovu, something that was already in her life. Perhaps someone she knew personally. If Nala guesses Kovu's origins or notices the similarities between him and Ciara, her calm becomes even more meaningful. She's not afraid of this connection. On the contrary, it's like she's letting it happen. It's not passivity. It's strategic non-interference. Knowing that their alliance could end an old feud, she doesn't break it. Even if it challenges the past and might reveal her own secret. Only someone in control of the situation can make such a move. Nala may look like a minor figure, but she is the link between the two worlds. Through her, the imperceptible transition of power from the age of Scar to the age of Simba and onward to the combined dynasty of Kiara and Kovu is accomplished. Simba rules by right of force. Nala rules by right of information. If Kiara is indeed born of a forbidden bond, it means that the dynasty's entire history is built on silence. But Nala's silence ensures peace. Her decision to accept Simba as Kiara's father creates the appearance of continuity. And her tolerance for Kovu is laying the foundation for future unification. Nala never speaks the truth out loud, and perhaps no one in Lion King history will ever fully recognize her. But she knows. And that awareness gives her a power that no one else has. On the surface, she's a queen. Inside is a politician, a strategist, and the bearer of the secret that changed the fate of the Pride Lands. This dynasty is not built on the might of Simba, the sacrifice of Mufasa, or the legacy of Scar. It's built on Nala's judgment. Her silence is the foundation of stability, and her choice is a price no one should have noticed. The story of the Pride Lands is told on behalf of the king. Simba is at the center. His exile, his return, his victory. Everything the viewer sees is presented through the prism of his fate. But as with any empire, absolute power is rarely in plain sight. The most important truth is the one that is never told. If we accept that Ciara is not Simba's biological daughter, the family tree will also break down. An entire ideology is disintegrating. Mufasa's legacy, the law of the ancestors, and the succession structure become illusions covering a much more fragile and complex mechanism. Simba rules because he's regained his throne, but he doesn't pass it on by blood. Ciara is not an extension of him. She results from a union outside the king's will and knowledge. Simba may have guessed it. Maybe he felt it, but he couldn't, or wouldn't, know the truth. Kiara becomes the link between Simba's pride and the descendants of the exiles. This alliance seems accidental, but in reality, it could have been launched much earlier. From the moment she was born, since Nala's choice, Nala knew what she was doing when she concealed Ciara's paternity. I let Simba believe in himself as a father when she didn't object to his control or oppose Kovu's arrival. These are all elements of her tacit control. She's the one keeping the Pride Lands from going to war again. She, not Simba, makes possible a future where the children of the two warring sides unite. There's no gesture of heroism in that. There's no recognition. There is no glory. There is only quiet necessity. The price of stability is silence about the past. But in that silence, there is loss. Kiara grows up under an illusion, not knowing who her father is. Kovu lives with the stigma of being Scar's heir, not knowing how close he really is to the royal line. Simba retains the face of a king but loses his footing in the truth, which no longer belongs to anyone. She lives only in Nala's memory, which is why she is the true heir to the power. Not formal, but structural. Not the kind that keeps pride in obedience, but the kind that builds a new generation on the ruins of the old. Such an ending is uncomfortable. He doesn't fit into the story. He contradicts all the vivid episodes we are used to. But he explains what has remained strange until now. Why Kiara is so different from Simba. Why Nala remains in the shadows but never once loses control. Why Kiara and Kovu's alliance seems natural rather than risky. Why Zira doesn't attack directly. Why everything works, as long as no one tells the truth. The story of Pride Lands is the story of a world built on hidden solutions. And it was Nala who hid the most in her. She's not just a queen. She is the only character who has sacrificed personal truth for overall stability. But every secret has consequences. And the price of silence is another man's name on the throne, another man's legacy in the blood of his heirs, and the inability to tell where the new pride really began